1 year from today, you'll look back at this exact moment and realize it was the turning point. Not because your circumstances magically changed, but because you changed how you walked through them. You stopped white-knuckling your plans and started following mine. You stopped demanding proof before trust and started trusting despite the unknown. And here's what happened. The anxiety that used to wake you at 3 a.m., gone. The doors that stayed closed no matter how hard you pushed, swung open when you finally stepped back. The life you thought you had to force, unfolded naturally the moment you let me lead. That future is available right now. The only question is, are you ready to let go? Let me paint this picture more clearly for you, because you need to see where you're heading. 1 year from now, you wake up in the morning, and your first thought isn't panic. It isn't the mental checklist of everything you have to control today. It isn't the crushing weight of all the things that could go wrong. Your first thought is peace. It's gratitude. It's a quiet knowing that no matter what this day brings, you're not walking through it alone. You're being led. You're being guided by someone who actually knows what he's doing. Right now, you wake up already exhausted before your feet even hit the floor. You wake up with your mind racing, replaying yesterday's failures, rehearsing today's challenges, catastrophizing about tomorrow's unknowns. You reach for your phone before you even open your eyes fully, scrolling through messages and emails and notifications, letting other people's agendas flood your mind before you've even had a chance to center yourself. You're running on fumes, and you haven't even started your day yet. But 1 year from now, that's different. You wake up and you breathe. You actually take a deep breath, and you're present in the moment instead of already 10 steps ahead trying to control things that haven't even happened yet. You speak truth over your day before anxiety has a chance to speak lies. You surrender your agenda before you even know what the day holds. You transfer the weight from your shoulders to mine before you try to carry it yourself. And that simple shift, that decision to start your day in surrender instead of control, it changes everything that follows. Right now, you're making decisions from a place of fear. You might not call it fear. You might call it being responsible, being realistic, being careful. But underneath all of that is fear. Fear that if you don't control every detail, everything will fall apart. Fear that if you don't force doors open, you'll miss your opportunity. Fear that if you don't have a backup plan for your backup plan, you'll end up with nothing. Fear that if you really trust me, I'll let you down. So you operate from that fear. You say yes to things you should say no to because you're afraid of missing out. You say no to things you should say yes to because you're afraid of risk. You stay in situations that are slowly killing you because you're afraid of the unknown. You avoid conversations that need to happen because you're afraid of conflict. You perform and pretend and people please because you're afraid of rejection. And all of that fear, all of that self-protection, all of that control, it's exhausting you. But 1 year from now, you're making decisions from a place of peace. You're asking me first before you ask everyone else. You're waiting for my green light before you move. You're checking for my peace before you commit. And when you have that peace, you move with confidence, even if everyone else thinks you're crazy. When you don't have that peace, you say no with conviction, even if the opportunity looks amazing on paper. Because you've learned that my peace is more valuable than any opportunity, any relationship, any amount of money. Right now, your relationships are exhausting you. You're trying to control how people perceive you. You're managing everyone's emotions. You're walking on eggshells, trying to keep everyone happy. You're contorting yourself into whatever shape you think people want you to be, because you're desperate for approval, for acceptance, for love. You're giving pieces of yourself away, trying to earn something that can't be earned, and you're coming up empty every time. You're in relationships where you're doing all the pursuing, all the initiating, all the forgiving, all the understanding. You're pouring from an empty cup into people who don't even notice you're running dry. You're tolerating behavior you know you shouldn't tolerate, because you're afraid that if you set boundaries, they'll leave. You're staying silent when you should speak up, because you're afraid of rocking the boat. And the whole time, you're losing yourself. You're becoming someone you don't even recognize, because you're so busy trying to be who everyone else needs you to be. But 1 year from now, your relationships look different. Not because everyone around you changed, but because you changed. You stopped trying to control how people respond to you and started being authentic regardless of their response. You stopped performing for approval and started resting in the approval you already have from ME. You set boundaries without guilt. You speak truth without fear. You love without expectation. You give without keeping score. And the people who are meant to be in your life, they stay. The ones who aren't, they leave. And you're okay with that because you've learned that everyone isn't meant to go where I'm taking you. Right now, your work is draining you. You've tied your entire identity to your productivity, your performance, your position. You measure your worth by your output. You define your value by your achievements. And it's never enough. No matter how much you accomplish, there's always more to do. No matter how high you climb, there's always another level. No matter how hard you work, someone is always working harder. You're on a treadmill that never stops, chasing a finish line that keeps moving, trying to prove something to people who will never be satisfied. You're saying yes to every opportunity because you're afraid that if you say no, you'll be seen as lazy or uncommitted. You're working nights and weekends trying to get ahead, but you're falling behind in every other area of your life. Your health is suffering. Your relationships are strained. Your peace is non-existent. You're burning yourself out trying to build a life that, honestly, you're too exhausted to even enjoy. But 1 year from now, your work is an expression of worship, not a desperate attempt to prove your worth. You show up with excellence because you're serving ME through your work, not because you're trying to earn validation from people. You work hard, but you also rest without guilt. You give your best, but you also know when to say no. You pursue opportunities that align with where I'm leading you, and you release opportunities that don't, even if they look impressive. Because you've learned that success in my kingdom looks different than success in the world, and you'd rather have my approval than anyone else's applause. Right now, your finances are a source of constant stress. You're operating from scarcity. You're hoarding instead of giving because you're afraid there won't be enough. You're making decisions based on fear instead of faith. You're saying no to generosity because you can't see how the math works. You're white-knuckling every dollar, trying to control outcomes, trying to create your own security. And the more you grip, the more anxious you become, because deep down you know that no amount of money is enough to create the security you're really craving. You're working extra hours, taking on extra stress, sacrificing your peace, all to accumulate a little more. You tell yourself that once you hit a certain number, then you'll relax, then you'll be generous, then you'll trust God. But that number keeps moving. The goalpost keeps shifting. There's always just a little more you think you need before you'll feel safe. But 1 year from now, you've learned what it means to trust me as your provider. You're generous even when it doesn't make sense on paper because you've experienced my faithfulness. You give your first and your best because you trust that I'll take care of the rest. You make financial decisions based on my leading, not based on fear. And you've watched ME open doors you could never have opened yourself. You've seen provision show up from sources you never expected. You've experienced multiplication that defies logic. Because when you finally released your grip on your finances and surrendered them to ME, I was able to do what I've been trying to do all along. Provide for you in ways that increase your faith instead of ways that increase your pride. Right now, you're carrying weight that's crushing you. The weight of trying to control outcomes. The weight of everyone's expectations. the weight of your own impossible standards, the weight of past mistakes, the weight of future fears, the weight of keeping up appearances, the weight of unspoken pain. You're carrying all of it on your own shoulders, and you're collapsing under the pressure. Your body is showing the signs: tension headaches, stomach issues, insomnia, anxiety attacks. Your body is literally breaking down from the stress of trying to carry what you were never designed to carry. You put on a brave face. You tell everyone you're fine. You keep pushing through because that's what you've always done. But inside, you're screaming. Inside, you're desperate for someone to see how much you're struggling. So you keep the mask on. You keep the performance going. And you keep dying a little more inside every single day. But 1 year from now, you've learned what it means to cast your cares on me. You've learned that I never asked you to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. That's my job, not yours. You've learned to distinguish between what's yours to carry and what's mine to carry. And you've experienced the lightness, the freedom, the relief of finally putting down what was never yours to begin with. Your body is healing because your soul is at rest. Your mind is clear because you're not trying to control everything anymore. Your spirit is alive because you finally made room for me to be God instead of trying to do it yourself. Right now, you're so tired. Not just physically tired, though you are that, but soul tired, bone tired, tired of pretending, tired of performing, tired of controlling, tired of fighting battles that aren't yours, tired of trying to be strong enough, wise enough, good enough, tired of the constant pressure to have it all figured out, tired of the endless striving that never seems to get you anywhere. You're just tired. And maybe that's exactly where you need to be, because you can't receive my rest until you're willing to admit you're weary. You can't experience my strength until you're willing to admit your weakness. You can't walk in my will until you're willing to surrender your own. And you can't receive my guidance until you're willing to admit you're lost. So if you're tired right now, good. That's not defeat. That's the beginning of breakthrough. Because tired people are teachable people. Exhausted people are ready to try something different. People at the end of their rope are finally ready to reach for mine. And I've been waiting for you to get to this place. This place where you finally admit that your way isn't working. This place where you finally acknowledge that you need help. This place where you finally open your hands and say, God, I can't do this anymore. You do it. That's the place where transformation begins. Not when you get stronger, but when you finally admit you're weak. Not when you figure it out, but when you finally admit you're lost. Not when you pull yourself together, but when you finally fall apart in my presence and let me put you back together the way you were always meant to be. 1 year from now, you're going to be so grateful you didn't give up in this moment. You're going to look back at the exhaustion, the confusion, the desperation you're feeling right now, and you're going to recognize it for what it actually was. Not the end of your story, but the beginning of your transformation. Not evidence that something is wrong with you, but evidence that you're finally ready to do this differently. Not a sign that God has abandoned you, but an invitation to finally surrender to the God who has been pursuing you all along. So here's what I need you to understand before we go any further. This message isn't for people who have it all together. It's for people who are tired of pretending they do. This isn't for people who think they can figure it out on their own. It's for people who have finally realized they can't. This isn't for people who want tips and tricks to improve their life. It's for people who are ready for complete transformation. This isn't for people who want to add ME to their plans. It's for people who are ready to surrender their plans for mine. If you're still trying to be in control, if you're still convinced you can handle it on your own, if you're still looking for a formula or a shortcut or a way to manipulate ME into giving you what you want, this message isn't going to land. It's going to bounce right off you because you're not ready to hear it. But if you're desperate, if you're exhausted, if you're at the end of yourself, if you're finally ready to admit that you need a savior, not just for eternity, but for today, right now, in this very moment, then keep listening. Because what I'm about to show you is going to change everything. Not someday, starting right now. Because if you're here right now, if this message found you at this exact moment, it's not by accident. You're exhausted, aren't you? You're tired of trying to control outcomes, forcing doors open, mapping out every detail of your life only to watch it fall apart anyway. You've been working so hard to figure out my plan for your life that you've forgotten the simplest truth. You don't need to figure it out. You need to follow it. And those are two completely different assignments. You're stuck between wanting to trust ME and feeling terrified of what happens if you actually let go. And I get it. I really do. Because surrender doesn't feel safe to you. It feels like loss. It feels like giving up control, giving up your dreams, giving up your right to have a say in how your life unfolds. But what if I told you that's not what surrender is at all? What if everything you've been taught about letting ME guide your steps has been backwards? Here's what's really happening. You've been taught that faith means working harder, praying louder, fasting longer, and never admitting doubt. You've been told that if you just believe hard enough, if you just have more faith, if you just figure out the right formula, then I'll finally show up and make everything work. But that formula has left you burned out, anxious, disconnected from the very peace I promised you. You're doing everything right according to what you've been taught, and yet something still feels wrong. And here's why. You're approaching ME like I'm a vending machine. You put in the right prayers, the right actions, the right spiritual performance, and you expect ME to give you what you want. But that's not how this works. I'm not here to validate your plans. I'm not here to rubber stamp your agenda. I'm here to lead you into something far better than anything you could orchestrate on your own. The reason you're exhausted is because you're trying to do my job. You're trying to be the navigator when you were designed to be the traveler. And no matter how hard you try, no matter how much you stress, no matter how many backup plans you create, you can't do my job. You weren't built for it. And the moment you finally accept that, the moment you finally stop trying to be God and let me be God, everything shifts. Because here's what I need you to understand. Surrender isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of the story you were always meant to live. It's not weakness. It's the most powerful, strategic, aggressive position you can possibly take, because when you surrender to ME, you're not giving up control. You're transferring it to the only one who actually knows what he's doing. Think about it. When you try to control your life, you're working with limited information. You can see today, maybe tomorrow, maybe next week. If you're really organized, you can see your circumstances, your resources, your obstacles. But that's it. That's the extent of your vision. But I see everything. I see the beginning and the end. I see the doors that look good but lead to destruction. I see the delays that feel like denials but are actually divine protection. I see the closed doors that break your heart today but save your life tomorrow. I see the person you're becoming, the purpose you're walking into, the destiny that's unfolding with every step you take in trust. So when you try to navigate your life with your limited vision, you make decisions based on incomplete information. You force doors that I closed for a reason. You chase opportunities that look shiny but are spiritually bankrupt. You hold on to relationships that are slowly poisoning you because you're afraid of being alone. You say yes to things I never asked you to do because you're desperate to feel significant. And then you wonder why you're so tired. You wonder why nothing seems to work out. You wonder why I'm not showing up. But I've been showing up all along. You just couldn't see me because you were too busy running your own show. You were so focused on your plans that you missed my direction. You were so determined to make things happen that you ignored every red flag I planted in your path. And now you're here, at the end of your own strength, finally ready to admit that maybe, just maybe, you've been doing this wrong. And that's not a bad place to be. In fact, it's the best place you could possibly be. Because you can't receive my guidance until you're willing to admit you need it. You can't experience my peace until you're willing to release your grip on control. You can't walk in my will until you stop trying to bend my will to match yours. So here's what this message is going to do for you. First, it's going to dismantle every toxic belief you've been carrying about what surrender actually means, because you've been lied to. You've been told that letting ME guide your steps means becoming passive, sitting around waiting for miracles, giving up your dreams and ambitions. That's garbage. That's not biblical. That's not what I teach anywhere in my word. Surrender is active. It's obedience in motion. It's doing the next thing I tell you to do without needing to see step 10. It's trusting ME enough to move before you understand. And when you finally learn how to do that, when you finally learn to recognize my voice and follow it without hesitation, you'll discover a version of yourself you never knew existed. You'll make decisions with confidence. You'll sleep through the night without anxiety eating you alive. You'll walk through storms with peace that makes no logical sense, because you'll know, deep in your bones, that I've got you, that I've gone before you, that I'm with you right now, and that I'm working all things, even the confusing and painful things, together for your good. Second, this message is going to teach you how to actually hear my voice in a world full of counterfeits. Because that's the real issue, isn't it? It's not that you don't want to follow me. It's that you don't know how to distinguish my voice from fear, from culture, from manipulation, from your own desires dressed up in spiritual language. You've prayed for direction and gotten 100 different answers. You've asked for signs and seen them everywhere and nowhere at the same time. You don't have a faith problem. You have a discernment problem. And I'm going to fix that. Third, you're going to learn what surrender looks like in real time, not just in theory, because theory is useless if you can't apply it. You need practical, scripture-based methods to surrender daily. You need to know what to do when you wake up at 3 a.m. in a panic. You need to know how to make decisions when every option feels equally terrifying. You need to know how to release control of outcomes while still showing up with effort. And I'm going to give you that. By the end of this message, you're going to understand why your current approach to faith feels like pushing a boulder uphill. You're going to understand why you've been so tired, so stressed, so anxious all the time. To stop performing and start resting in who you already are in Christ. And here's what makes this different from every other Christian message you've heard about faith and trust and surrender. We're not doing motivational Christianity. We're not doing therapy speak dressed in Bible verses. We're not doing self-help with a Jesus sticker on it. We're going directly to the source. We're letting Scripture speak for itself. Because I already wrote everything you need to know. It's all there in my word. You just haven't been taught how to read it as a navigation system instead of a suggestion box. So if you're ready, if you're tired enough, if you're desperate enough to finally do this differently, because the life you've been chasing, the peace you've been craving, the purpose you've been searching for, it's all on the other side of surrender. And surrender starts right now, right here, with you deciding that you're done trying to be God, done trying to orchestrate your own rescue, done trying to control things that were never yours to control in the first place. Let me tell you a story. A long time ago, I led my people through a desert for 40 years. 40 years. And before you roll your eyes and think, yeah, I know that story, let me tell you what you missed. Because this isn't about geography or ancient history. This is about you. This is about right now. These were my people. I rescued them from slavery. I parted the Red Sea so they could escape. I showed up as a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. I was literally, visibly, undeniably present with them every single moment. And yet they still didn't trust me. Every time I provided manna, they complained they wanted meat. Every time I showed them the way, they second-guessed the route. Every time I said follow me, they said, but what if? They had a promised land waiting for them, a land flowing with milk and honey, a land where they would finally have rest, abundance, peace, everything they had been dreaming of. It was right there. I was ready to give it to them. But they couldn't arrive because they wouldn't surrender. They kept trying to navigate their own shortcuts. They kept complaining about my provision. They kept looking back at Egypt, romanticizing their slavery, because at least in slavery they knew what to expect. At least in slavery they had the illusion of control. Does that sound familiar? Because you do the same thing. You pray for breakthrough, and I open a door, but it's not the door you expected, so you ignore it and keep banging on the locked one. You ask me to guide your steps, but when I say rest, you hear failure. When I say wait, you hear no. When I say trust me, you hear do nothing. You keep trying to find shortcuts to the promised land because you don't like the route I'm taking you on. You keep complaining about my provision because it doesn't look like what you wanted. You keep looking back at the very situations I rescued you from because at least they were familiar. And just like my people in the desert, you're wandering in circles, not because I'm punishing you, not because I'm withholding something from you, but because you won't follow. You won't trust. You won't let me lead. Let me paint this picture more clearly for you. Imagine you're in that desert with them. You wake up every morning to manna on the ground, bread from heaven, supernatural provision. But instead of gratitude, there's grumbling. People are complaining that they missed the food they had in Egypt. Never mind that in Egypt they were slaves. Never mind that they were beaten, oppressed, worked to death. They remember the garlic and the leeks and the fish, and suddenly slavery doesn't seem so bad compared to the uncertainty of the wilderness. That's what you do with your past. You romanticize the very bondage I delivered you from. You miss the relationship that was destroying you because at least you weren't alone. You miss the job that was draining your soul because at least the paycheck was predictable. You miss the old version of yourself that was anxious and controlling because at least you knew who that person was. Change is terrifying to you, even when it's change toward freedom, because you'd rather have predictable slavery than uncertain liberation. And here's what kills me about this. While they're complaining about manna, while they're longing for Egypt, while they're questioning whether I really know what I'm doing, I'm literally showing up every single day. The cloud is there. The fire is there. The provision is there. But they can't see it because they're too busy looking backward or looking inward at their own dissatisfaction. You know what finally shifted for them? It wasn't when circumstances got easier. The desert didn't become less harsh. The journey didn't become less uncertain. What shifted was their posture. There came a moment when they stopped asking why and started asking where. They stopped demanding explanations and started demanding direction. They stopped trying to understand my ways and started following my cloud. And the moment they did that, everything changed. Not externally at first, but internally. The manna that tasted like monotony suddenly tasted like mercy. The cloud that seemed arbitrary suddenly seemed intentional. The journey that felt punishing suddenly felt purposeful. Because they finally understood that I wasn't leading them away from something. I was leading them toward something. And the journey itself was transforming them into people who could actually handle what I was bringing them into. Here's what most people miss about the desert story. The promised land was never the point. It was the destination. The purpose was the transformation that happened in the wilderness. Because the people who left Egypt were not ready for the promised land. They had a slave mentality. They were used to being told what to do, when to do it, how to do it. They didn't know how to think for themselves, fight for themselves, govern themselves. If I had brought them into the land immediately, they would have lost it immediately because they weren't ready to steward it. So, the wilderness wasn't punishment. It was preparation. Every day that I provided manna was teaching them to trust me for daily provision. Every day that the cloud moved was teaching them to follow my timing, not their own. Every day that they had to set up camp and then break it down was teaching them that nothing in this life is permanent except me. Every battle they faced was teaching them that I fight for those who trust me. The wilderness was the classroom, and surrender was the curriculum. And you're in your own wilderness right now. You think you're waiting to get to your promised land. But what you don't realize is that the wilderness is the promised land. Because this is where you're learning to hear my voice. This is where you're learning to trust me when you can't see. This is where you're developing the character, the faith, the dependence on me that you're going to need for everything I'm bringing you into. So stop asking me to get you out of the wilderness and start asking me what you're supposed to learn in it. Because the second you shift that question, the second you stop resisting where you are and start receiving what I'm doing in where you are, the wilderness stops being a prison and starts being a training ground. Here's what transformed everything for my people. They stopped trying to orchestrate their own rescue and started following the cloud by day and the fire by night. They stopped asking, why are we going this way? And started asking, where are we going next? They stopped demanding to understand the route and started trusting the guide. And the moment they did that, the moment they surrendered their need for control and simply followed, supernatural provision showed up. Food appeared. Water flowed from rocks. Their shoes didn't wear out. Their enemies fled before them. Not when they understood the route, not when it made sense. When they moved in trust despite the unknown. The desert wasn't the problem. Their refusal to let Emmy lead through it was. And the same is true for you. Your circumstances aren't the problem. Your job, your relationship status, your bank account, your past mistakes, none of that is the real issue. The issue is that you're trying to navigate the desert with your own map instead of following my cloud. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but God, I am following you. I'm praying. I'm reading the Bible. I'm going to church. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. Why isn't it working? And here's what I need you to hear. There's a massive difference between doing religious things and actually following me. You can pray beautiful prayers and still be running your own show. You can read my word every day and still ignore what it's telling you. You can go to church every Sunday and still refuse to obey me Monday through Saturday. Religious activity doesn't equal surrender, and that's the trap you've fallen into. You've been taught that if you just do enough Christian stuff, if you just check enough spiritual boxes, then I'll bless your plans. But I'm not interested in blessing your plans. I'm interested in showing you mine, and my plans require something you're terrified to give: complete trust. Let me tell you another story, and this one's going to make you uncomfortable. But you need to hear it. There was a man I encountered who sat by a healing pool for 38 years. 38 years. Let that sink in. 38 years of the same problem, the same frustration, the same disappointment. Every day, he waited for someone to help him into the water. Every day, he told himself the same story. I can't move forward because no one will help me. I can't get healing because circumstances are against me. I can't change my life because I don't have what I need. For 38 years, he had the same excuse, the same victim mentality, the same passive waiting for someone else to fix his problem. And then, I showed up. And I asked him the most important question anyone will ever be asked. I said, "Do you want to be healed?" Now, if you were him, what would you say? You'd say yes, right? You'd say absolutely, please, finally, yes. But that's not what he said. His first response wasn't yes. It was an excuse. He explained why he couldn't do it himself. He explained why circumstances were against him. He explained why someone else needed to fix it first. He had been telling that story for so long that he couldn't even recognize an opportunity to change when it was standing right in front of him. Think about what that means. This man had been paralyzed for nearly 4 decades. 4 decades of watching other people get healed while he stayed stuck. 4 decades of hoping, praying, waiting for his turn. And when his turn finally came, when I showed up personally and offered him exactly what he'd been waiting for, his first instinct was to explain why it wouldn't work. Do you see yourself in him? Because I do. You've been stuck in the same patterns, the same cycles, the same frustrations for how long now? Years? Decades? And every time an opportunity for change presents itself, every time I show up and offer you a way forward, you default to your excuses. You explain why it's not the right time. You explain why you're not ready. You explain why someone else needs to change first. You explain why your circumstances need to be different before you can move. And I didn't argue with him. I didn't negotiate. I didn't try to convince him he was wrong. I simply said this: get up, pick up your mat, walk. 3 commands: get up, pick up your mat, walk. And the moment he obeyed, the moment he stopped waiting for perfect conditions and moved in trust, 38 years of paralysis ended instantly. His legs that hadn't worked in decades suddenly worked. His muscles that had atrophied suddenly had strength. His body that had betrayed him for 38 years suddenly obeyed him. Not because circumstances changed, not because someone finally helped him into the pool, not because he understood how healing works, because he OBEI'd before it made sense. Do you understand what just happened in that story? That man didn't need more faith. He didn't need better circumstances. He didn't even need understanding. He needed to obey before it made sense. He needed to act on my word before he saw the result. He needed to trust that I knew what I was talking about, even when his body was telling him something different. You're that man. You're sitting by your own pool, waiting for clarity, waiting for signs, waiting for life to feel easier before you trust ME. You're waiting for someone to fix your situation, waiting for circumstances to align, waiting for everything to make sense before you move. And all the while, I'm standing right in front of you saying, get up, move, follow me. But you can't hear me because you're too busy explaining why you can't. Here's the question I'm asking you right now. The same question I asked him. Do you want to be healed? Do you want breakthrough? Do you want the life I've been trying to give you? Or do you want to keep explaining why you can't have it? Because you can't have both. You can't stay stuck in your story and step into my plan at the same time. You have to choose. And I know that's hard. I know that moving before you see the result feels impossible. I know that trusting me, when you can't see the next step, feels terrifying. But that's what faith is. Faith isn't believing, I'll come through when it makes sense. Faith is believing, I'll come through especially when it doesn't. Let me show you what this looks like in your actual life right now. You're facing a decision, and you've been paralyzed by it for weeks, maybe months. Should you take the new job or stay where you are? Should you have the hard conversation or keep avoiding it? Should you end the relationship or keep trying to make it work? Should you invest the money or play it safe? Should you move to the new city or stay in the familiar one? And you keep waiting for some kind of supernatural clarity, some unmistakable sign from heaven that removes all doubt and makes the decision obvious. But that's not how I usually work. Most of the time, I give you enough light for the next step, not the whole staircase. I give you peace about a direction, not a guarantee about the outcome. I give you wisdom for today, not a roadmap for the next 5 years. So, you're stuck. Because you want certainty before you move. But faith requires movement before certainty. You want to see before you believe. But I'm asking you to believe before you see. And that tension is what's keeping you paralyzed. Here's what I want you to understand. The man by the pool didn't feel healed before he stood up. He didn't have any physical evidence that his legs would work. He didn't have confirmation that this was going to work out. He had my word. That's it. Get up. And he had to decide if my word was enough, if my command was trustworthy, if I knew what I was talking about even when everything in his experience told him otherwise. And he decided yes. He decided that if the one who created the universe, who spoke the world into existence, who has authority over disease and death, if he says, get up, then he's getting up, even if it doesn't make sense, even if it's never worked before, even if he falls flat on his face, he's getting up because I said so. That's the kind of trust I'm looking for from you. Not blind faith, not reckless stupidity, but trust that when I speak, my word is more reliable than your feelings, more trustworthy than your circumstances, more powerful than your past experiences. So let me be very clear about something. The Bible isn't a suggestion box. It's not a collection of inspirational quotes you can cherry-pick when you're feeling down. It's not a spiritual Pinterest board where you grab the verses that make you feel good and ignore the ones that challenge you. The Bible is a navigation system. It's a roadmap. It's my voice speaking directly to you, telling you exactly how to live, how to make decisions, how to walk through every situation you will ever face. But you've been taught to read the Bible when I designed it to lead you. And there's a massive difference. When you read it for information, you're looking for knowledge. When you read it for direction, you're looking for obedience. One fills your head, the other changes your life. Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. You've heard it a million times. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. You've probably got that verse on a coffee mug or a wall decoration, but have you actually done what it says? It doesn't say, trust in the Lord with some of your heart. It doesn't say, lean partially on your own understanding. It says, all your heart. It says, lean not on your understanding at all. In all your ways, not just the spiritual ones, not just the church ones, but all your ways, acknowledge me, and I will make your paths straight. That's not poetic language. That's a system. That's a process. That's a promise. But here's what you do instead. You trust me with your salvation. You trust me with your eternal destiny. You trust me with the big spiritual stuff. But when it comes to your actual daily life, when it comes to your career decisions, your relationship choices, your financial moves, your daily schedule, you trust yourself. You lean on your own understanding. You make your plans and then ask me to bless them instead of asking me for the plans in the first place. And then you wonder why your paths aren't straight. You wonder why you keep hitting dead ends. You wonder why you're so stressed and anxious and overwhelmed all the time. It's because you're trying to navigate life with a system I never designed you to use. You're trying to lean on understanding that's too limited to carry the weight you're putting on it. Your understanding is based on what you can see, what you can measure, what you can control, what makes sense according to your current circumstances. But I see everything you can't see. I see the future you're walking into. I see the traps you're about to step in. I see the blessings that are coming that you're not ready for yet. I see the person you're becoming. I see the purpose you're walking toward. I see the doors that need to close, and the doors that need to open, and the exact timing for everything. So when I tell you to trust me with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, I'm not asking you to shut off your brain. I'm asking you to submit your brain to my wisdom. I'm asking you to acknowledge that your perspective is limited and my perspective is complete. I'm asking you to recognize that the smartest thing you could possibly do is follow someone who actually knows where he's going. Let me give you a modern example of what this looks like. Imagine you're using a GPS to navigate to a destination you've never been to before. The GPS tells you to take a turn that doesn't make sense. According to your eyes, you should go straight. According to your logic, the turn will take you the wrong direction. According to your understanding, the GPS must be wrong. So, what do? If you're smart, you trust the GPS. Why? Because the GPS has access to information you don't have. It sees the whole route. It knows about the road closure ahead that you can't see yet. It knows about the traffic jam you're about to hit if you go straight. It knows about the shortcut that will save you 20 minutes. It has perspective you don't have. So even when its directions don't make sense to you, you trust it. That's what I'm asking you to do with my word. I'm your GPS. I see the whole route. I know about the obstacles you can't see yet. I know about the delays that are actually divine protection. I know about the shortcuts that look appealing but will lead you into destruction. I have perspective you don't have. So even when my directions don't make sense to you, trust me. But here's the paradox you need to understand, and this is critical. It means taking the step you know to take while trusting me with the steps you can't see. Surrender is active. It's obedience in motion. It's trust that moves. Moses didn't see the parted Red Sea before he lifted his staff. The sea wasn't parted. The people were trapped against the water with the Egyptian army closing in. And I told him, lift your staff. Can you imagine what was going through his mind? He's looking at this giant body of water. He's hearing the armies getting closer. The people are panicking behind him, blaming him for leading them into a trap. And I'm telling him to lift a stick. That makes no sense. That doesn't solve the problem. That's not a plan. But he did it anyway. He lifted his staff in faith, and then the sea parted. Not before, not when it made sense. After he obeyed, the miracle followed the obedience. The breakthrough came after the trust. The deliverance showed up when he moved without seeing. David didn't wait until Goliath looked smaller. He didn't wait until he felt brave enough. He didn't wait until he had better weapons or more training or a clear strategy. He ran toward the giant with what he had, a sling, 5 stones, and absolute trust that I would show up. Everyone thought he was insane. His own brothers mocked him. King Saul tried to dress him in armor that didn't fit. The giant himself laughed at him. But David knew something they didn't know. He knew that the battle wasn't about size or strength or weapons. It was about whose God showed up, and he trusted that his God was bigger than their giant. And I did. I showed up. That stone didn't just randomly hit Goliath in the exact right spot to kill him. I guided it. I empowered it. I used a shepherd boy and a small stone to defeat a trained warrior because I wanted everyone to know that victory doesn't come from human strength. It comes from divine partnership. It comes from someone who's willing to move in faith even when the odds are ridiculous. Mary didn't ask for a blueprint of how virgin birth works. She didn't demand a scientific explanation. She didn't need to understand the mechanics before she said yes. When the angel told her she would carry my son, she had every reason to say no. It was impossible. It was terrifying. It would ruin her reputation, risk her engagement, upend her entire life. People would think she was lying or immoral. Joseph would have every right to leave her. Her family might disown her. She could be stoned according to the law. But she didn't demand understanding first. She didn't say, let me think about it. She didn't say, I need to see how this is going to work out before I commit. She simply said, let it be to me, according to your word. She surrendered the outcome, the reputation, the future, all of it. She said, if you say this is happening, then I trust you to handle the details I can't see. That's active surrender. That's what it looks like to trust me with your steps. You do the thing I'm telling you to do right now, even when you can't see how it's going to work out, even when it doesn't make logical sense, even when everyone around you thinks you're crazy. You move in obedience, and you trust me to handle the results. But you're afraid to do that because you're afraid I'll let you down. You're afraid that if you really surrender, if you really let me lead, I'll take you somewhere you don't want to go. I'll ask you to give up something you can't live without. I'll close doors you're desperate to walk through. I'll say no to dreams you've been holding on to for years. And yeah, sometimes I will. But not because I'm cruel, not because I'm withholding good things from you, because I love you too much to give you things that will destroy you. Let me tell you about a time when I said no. There was a man named Paul, one of my most faithful servants. He had what he called a thorn in his flesh. We don't know exactly what it was, but it was painful, persistent, and problematic. It made his life harder. It made his ministry harder. So he did what any reasonable person would do. He asked me to remove it. Not once, 3 times. 3 separate times he begged me to take it away. And I said no. But here's what I didn't say. I didn't say no because I don't care about your pain. I didn't say no because you don't have enough faith. I didn't say no because you did something wrong. I said no because my grace is sufficient for you, and my power is made perfect in weakness. I said no because that very thing you want me to remove is the thing I'm using to keep you dependent on me. Without it, you'd become self-sufficient, self-reliant, self-focused. With it, you remember every single day that you need me. And Paul got it. He didn't sulk. He didn't stop serving. He didn't question my love for him. Instead, he said this, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses so that Christ's power may rest on me. He actually started celebrating the very thing he had begged me to remove, because he realized that my no wasn't rejection. It was redirection. It was protection. It was an invitation into deeper dependence and greater power. So when I say no to something you want, when I close a door you're desperate to walk through, when I don't answer your prayer the way you want, it's not because I don't love you. It's because I love you too much to give you something that would ultimately hurt you. I see what you can't see. I know what you don't know. And sometimes my love looks like a closed door, a delayed answer, a different path than you expected. You keep trying to force doors that I've closed for your protection. You keep holding on to relationships that are slowly poisoning your soul. You keep chasing opportunities that look good on the surface, but are spiritually bankrupt underneath. You keep saying yes to things I never asked you to do, because you're desperate to feel significant, to feel successful, to feel like you're not wasting your life. And every time you do that, every time you override my guidance and chase what you want instead, you end up more exhausted, more disappointed, more confused than before. So let me ask you something. How's your way working out for you? How's all that striving and controlling and manipulating and forcing been going? Are you at peace? Are you fulfilled? Are you sleeping well at night? Are you confident in your decisions? Or are you tired? Are you anxious? Are you second-guessing everything? Are you second-guessing everything? Are you feeling like no matter how hard you try, you just can't seem to get it right? If it's the latter, then maybe, just maybe, it's time to admit that you don't know what you're doing, that you can't see what's coming, that you need help, that you need a guide, that you need to stop trying to be God and let me actually do my job. And I know what question you're asking right now. You're asking, but how do I know which voice is yours? How do I know which impression is from you versus fear, culture, manipulation, my own desires dressed up in spiritual language? How do I know I'm really following you and not just following what I want and calling it your will? That's the most important question you could ask. Because there are 1,000 voices competing for your attention. Culture is screaming at you to live for yourself, to chase success, to accumulate and prove your worth. Fear is whispering that you're not enough, that you're behind, that everyone else has it figured out and you're failing. Your past is replaying every mistake, every failure, every reason you should just give up. Other people are projecting their opinions, their expectations, their agendas onto your life. Your own desires are disguising themselves as spiritual leadings because you want something so badly that you'll interpret any coincidence as confirmation. And somewhere in all that noise, my voice is speaking. But it's not the loudest voice. It's not the most urgent voice. It's the still, small voice that you can only hear when you get quiet enough to listen. So how do you distinguish my voice from all the counterfeits? Let me give you some markers. And I want you to really pay attention to these because they could save your life. First, my voice always aligns with my written word. Always. Period. No exceptions. If an impression contradicts Scripture, it's not me. If a sign leads you toward sin, selfishness, or shortcuts, it's not me. If a feeling tells you to do something that goes against what I've clearly said in the Bible, that's not my voice. I don't speak in contradictions. I don't say one thing in my word and then tell you something different in your spirit. Let me give you a concrete example. Let's say you're in a relationship with someone who isn't a believer, and you keep getting these feelings that this is the person you're supposed to marry. You keep seeing signs everywhere. You keep having these moments where it feels like I'm confirming it. But my word clearly says, do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. So no matter how strong the feeling is, no matter how many coincidences you see, no matter how much you want it to be me, it's not, because I don't contradict my own word. Or, let's say you're considering a business opportunity that would require you to compromise your integrity, to cut corners, to operate in ways that aren't honest, and you're trying to justify it by saying, well, if this works out, I can use the money to do good things. I can give to the church. I can help people. So maybe God is okay with this. No, I'm not. Because my word says to do everything as unto the Lord, to let your yes be yes and your no be no, to walk in integrity. The ends don't justify the means in my kingdom. I don't bless dishonest gain, even if you promise to use it for good things later. So if you want to know if something is from me, you have to know what I've already said. You have to know my word well enough to recognize when something aligns with it and when it doesn't. And that requires more than reading a verse a day on your phone. That requires actually studying, meditating, saturating yourself in Scripture, so that when a counterfeit voice speaks, you recognize it immediately, because it doesn't sound like me. Second, my voice brings peace, even in hard obedience. Even when what I'm asking you to do is difficult, even when it's scary, even when it's going to cost you something, there's a peace underneath it. It's not the absence of fear. You can be terrified and still have my peace. It's peace in the midst of fear. It's a deep knowing that this is right, even when it's hard. It's a settledness in your spirit that says, I don't know how this is going to work out, but I know this is what I'm supposed to do. The enemy, on the other hand, brings chaos disguised as urgency. He brings pressure, manipulation, frantic energy. He makes you feel like you have to figure it out right now, decide right now, move right now, or you'll miss it. He creates artificial deadlines and manufactured panic. He makes you feel like if you don't grab this opportunity immediately, it'll disappear forever. He rushes you into decisions because he knows that when you're rushed, you make mistakes. That's not how I operate. I guide with clarity and confidence, even when the path is difficult. Even when I'm asking you to do something scary, there's a steadiness to my voice. There's a, this is the way, walk in it quality. There's a, you don't have to have it all figured out, just take the next step assurance. I don't create panic, I create peace. So if you're feeling frantic, if you're feeling pressured, if you're feeling like everything is urgent and chaotic and you can't think straight, that's not me. Step back, get quiet, wait until the chaos settles. Because my guidance comes with my presence, and my presence brings peace. Third, my voice confirms through multiple witnesses. I don't just whisper once and disappear. I confirm through scripture, through godly counsel, through circumstances aligning, through peace in your spirit. When all four of those things agree, that's my voice. When scripture says it, when wise people you trust are saying the same thing, when doors are opening naturally without you having to force them, when you have peace about it even though it's scary, that's me. But if even one of those is off, if scripture contradicts it, if everyone you trust is warning you against it, if you have to manipulate circumstances to make it happen, if there's no peace in your spirit, then stop. That's not my leading. That's you trying to make something happen that I'm not in. Let me give you an example of what this looks like in real life. Let's say you're thinking about making a major life change, moving to a new city, changing careers, ending a relationship, whatever, and you're trying to figure out if it's ME leading you or just your own restlessness. So you start with scripture. What does the Bible say about this kind of decision? Are there principles that apply? Wisdom about how to navigate this. You're not looking for a verse that specifically says, move to Dallas or quit your job. You're looking for biblical principles about decision-making, about recognizing my will, about trusting my in transitions. Then you talk to people you trust, not people who will just tell you what you want to hear. People who love you enough to be honest. People who know you well enough to speak into your life. People who are walking with ME themselves so they can offer godly perspective. And you listen to what they're saying. Not just one person, but multiple voices of wisdom. And you notice whether there's consistency in what they're telling you. Then you look at circumstances. Are doors opening naturally? Are resources showing up? Are opportunities presenting themselves without you having to force them? Or are you having to manipulate, control, push, and strain to make anything happen? Because when I'm leading you somewhere, I go before you and prepare the way. That doesn't mean it's easy, but it means there's a naturalness to how things unfold. There's a, this is clearly bigger than ME quality to it. And finally, you check your own spirit, not your emotions, because emotions are fickle, but deep in your core, beneath the fear and excitement and nervousness, is there peace? Is there a settledness that says this is right? Or is there unrest, anxiety, a sense that something is off even though you can't articulate why? When all four of those line up, scripture, counsel, circumstances, peace, you can move with confidence. When they don't, you wait. You don't force it. You don't try to make it happen in your own strength. You trust that if it's ME, all four will eventually align. And if it's not ME, at least one of them will keep saying no. But here's what you need to understand about my guidance. It's not always comfortable. It's always good, but it's not always easy. When I told Abraham to leave everything familiar and go to a land he'd never seen, That wasn't comfortable. He was 75 years old. He had to leave his home, his relatives, everything he knew. He had to trust me to lead him to a place I wouldn't even name. I just said go, and I'll show you when you get there. That was terrifying. But it was good. It was the beginning of a legacy that would change the world. When I told Esther to risk her life for her people, that wasn't easy. She was literally putting her life on the line. If the king didn't extend his scepter when she approached him uninvited, she would be executed. That's not a small ask. But it was my will. And because she trusted me enough to do the hard thing, an entire nation was saved. When I called Peter to step out of the boat in the middle of a storm that went against every natural instinct he had, boats are for staying in during storms, not getting out of. But I called him to do the impossible, and for a few glorious moments, he walked on water. Not because the circumstances were easy, because he kept his eyes on me instead of the waves. You keep waiting for guidance that feels safe. But my best guidance often requires you to trust me more than you trust your comfort. Because comfort isn't the goal. Transformation is, and transformation rarely happens in your comfort zone. So if comfort isn't the compass, what is? Obedience. That's the compass. That's the North Star. The question isn't, does this feel good, or does this feel safe, or does this make sense? The question is this what God is asking me to do? Because if it is, then the only right response is yes. Not yes but, not yes when, not yes if, just yes. And this is where everything shifts. This is where surrender stops being a passive, weak, giving up on life kind of thing and becomes the most powerful posture you could possibly take. Because surrender means this: I will do everything I can with what you've given me, and I will trust you with what only you can do. Surrender means I'm going to show up. I'm going to work. I'm going to steward what's in my hands. But I'm not going to carry what was never mine to carry. Nehemiah didn't pray for walls to be rebuilt and then take a nap. He prayed and he organized the work. He prayed and he recruited people. He prayed and he stood guard against enemies. He did everything he could do, and he trusted me to do what only I could do. He worked like it depended on him, and prayed like it depended on me. That's the balance. That's active surrender. Esther didn't fast and then assume I would save her people without her involvement. She fasted and she approached the king. She prepared herself spiritually, and she took the risky action I was asking her to take. She did the hard thing, and she trusted me with the outcome. She didn't control whether the king would extend his scepter, but she controlled whether she showed up. She did her part, and she trusted me to do mine. Paul didn't preach the gospel and assume everyone would automatically believe. He preached and he endured persecution, shipwrecks, beatings, rejection, imprisonment. He did his part with everything he had, giving his full effort, his full energy, his full devotion. And he trusted me with the results. He couldn't control whether people responded, but he could control whether he was faithful to proclaim the message. He did what was his to do, and he left the outcomes to me. You're not called to control the harvest. You're called to plant the seeds I tell you to plant, water them as I direct, and trust me with the growth. And here's the freedom in that. When you're focused on obedience instead of outcomes, you can't fail. Think about that. You literally cannot fail when obedience is the goal instead of results. Success isn't measured by whether people respond the way you want. It's not measured by whether the door opens on your timeline. It's not measured by whether your plan works out exactly how you envisioned it. Success is measured by one thing. Did you obey what I asked you to do? That's it. That's the entire assignment. Did you have the hard conversation I asked you to have? Success. Even if they didn't respond well. Did you apply for the job I prompted you to apply for? Success, even if you didn't get it. Did you extend forgiveness to the person who hurt you? Success, even if they didn't apologize. Did you give generously when I told you to give? Success, even if your bank account looks the same. Did you speak up when I told you to speak up? Success, even if people thought you were crazy, because you're not responsible for outcomes. You're responsible for obedience. And when you live like that, when you release outcomes and cling to obedience, anxiety evaporates, because you're no longer responsible for things that were never yours to control. You're not responsible for making someone love you. You're responsible for loving them well. You're not responsible for forcing a door open. You're responsible for knocking when I tell you to knock and walking away when I tell you to walk away. You're not responsible for controlling how your career unfolds. You're responsible for showing up with excellence wherever I've placed you right now. You're not responsible for fixing someone else. You're responsible for stewarding your own healing and growth. You're not responsible for making everything work out. You're responsible for trusting that I'm making everything work together for good. Do you see the difference? Do you see how much lighter that is? You're carrying so much weight that was never yours. You're trying to do my job, and you're collapsing under the pressure. But I never asked you to carry my job. I asked you to trust me to do it. But I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what if I obey, and it still doesn't work out the way I hoped? What if I surrender and it leads to loss? What if I trust you, and you let me down? Let me address that head on, because this is where a lot of people get stuck. This is where faith either deepens or dies. You need to understand something about how my kingdom works. In my economy, the way UP is down. The way to gain is to lose. The way to live is to die to self. This makes absolutely no sense to human logic. Your entire culture screams the opposite. Your culture says, accumulate, protect, control, hustle, climb, prove your worth, never let anyone see weakness, never admit you need help, never stop striving. But I say the opposite. I say whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. I say the last will be first. I say blessed are the meek, the mourning, the merciful, the persecuted. I say if you want to lead, become a servant. If you want to be great, become the least. If you want to live, die to yourself. I say store up treasures in heaven, not on earth. I say give, and it will be given to you. I say whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. Everything in my kingdom operates on upside-down principles, and until you understand that, you'll keep trying to apply worldly strategies to spiritual realities, and it will never work. What does that mean practically? It means the promotion you're clawing for might come when you finally stop networking and start serving faithfully where I've placed you right now. It means instead of climbing the ladder aggressively, you humbly steward the position you're in, and I elevate you in my timing. It means you stop trying to impress people and start trying to please me. And ironically, the right people notice. The relationship you're trying to force might show up when you surrender your timeline and trust my timing. It means you stop desperately searching and start becoming the person I'm preparing you to be. It means you stop trying to manipulate someone into loving you and start loving yourself the way I love you. And when you're whole in ME, when you're complete in ME, when you're not looking for someone to complete you, but to complement you, that's when I bring the right person. The financial breakthrough you're stressing over might arrive when you obey me in generosity, even when it doesn't make sense on paper. It means you tithe when you can't afford to. You give when you're barely getting by. You help someone in need when you have needs yourself. And I open windows of heaven you didn't even know existed. I bring provision from sources you never expected. I multiply what little you have in ways that defy logic. I don't operate on your metrics. I don't measure success the way you do. I operate on faithfulness, and faithfulness rarely looks impressive to the world. Faithfulness is showing up day after day in the small, unseen, unglamorous moments. Faithfulness is doing what I ask you to do even when no one's watching, even when you don't get credit, even when it feels like nothing's changing. Faithfulness is choosing integrity when you could get away with compromise. Faithfulness is serving in obscurity while others get the spotlight. Faithfulness is staying committed to the process even when you can't see progress. Faithfulness is trusting my timing when everyone else seems to be getting what you're waiting for. Faithfulness is obedience in the mundane, the repetitive, the ordinary moments that no one celebrates. But faithfulness is the key that unlocks everything in my kingdom. Because I don't promote people based on talent or charisma or connections. I promote people based on whether I can trust them, and I learn whether I can trust you by watching what you do with the small things I've already given you. You want a bigger platform? Are you faithful with the small one you have right now? Are you stewarding well the audience of 5, 10, 20 people who are watching your life? Are you pointing them to me in the ordinary moments? Or are you waiting until you have thousands before you'll take your faith seriously? You want more resources? Are you stewarding well the little you currently have? Are you honoring me with your finances even when there's barely enough? Are you generous with what little you have? Or are you hoarding what you have and promising to be generous when you have more? You want better circumstances? Are you serving faithfully in the difficult ones you're in? Are you showing up with excellence in the job you don't like? Are you loving people in the season that's uncomfortable? Are you praising me in the wilderness while you're waiting for the promised land? You keep asking me for more, for bigger, for better, but you're not ready for more, because you haven't learned to be faithful with less. And if I gave you more before you learned faithfulness, you'd waste it, you'd squander it, you'd become entitled and ungrateful and disconnected from me. So I keep you in the small place, the hidden place, the faithful place, until I can trust you with more. And here's the truth that will either offend you or liberate you. You don't need a bigger platform, more resources, or better circumstances to fulfill my will for your life. You need obedience in the small things I've already asked you to do. You need to be faithful where you are with what you have, because the blessing isn't always on the other side of the big break. Sometimes the blessing is the breaking. Sometimes the blessing is the moment you stop demanding your way and discover that my way was better all along. So yeah, you might obey me and not get the outcome you wanted. You might surrender and experience loss. You might trust me and walk through something hard. But here's what you're missing. What you call loss, I call pruning. What you call delay, I call preparation. What you call closed door, I call divine protection. You're measuring everything by your immediate comfort and your short-term desires, but I'm working on something that will last for eternity. Think about a farmer who prunes a tree. He cuts off branches that look perfectly healthy. If the tree could speak, it would say, "Why are you hurting me? Why are you taking away my branches? I need those." But the farmer knows that those branches are draining resources from the fruit-bearing branches. He knows that if he doesn't prune, the tree will produce less fruit. He knows that short-term pain leads to long-term productivity. The tree doesn't understand, but the farmer does. That's what I'm doing in your life. I'm pruning what needs to go so that what needs to stay can flourish. The relationship that ended, that was pruning. It was draining life from you. The job you lost, pruning. It was keeping you from the place I'm taking you. The opportunity that fell through, pruning. It looked good, but it would have kept you from my best. And when you finally get to the end of your life, when you finally see everything from my perspective, You're going to thank ME for every single no, every single closed door, every single thing you thought was loss. Because you're going to see that I was saving you, protecting you, steering you away from things that would have destroyed you and toward things that gave you life. I was protecting you from the relationship that would have slowly eroded your identity. I was saving you from the job that would have made you successful, but miserable. I was steering you away from the opportunity that would have made you rich, but spiritually bankrupt. I was redirecting you from the path that looked easier, but led to destruction, and onto the path that looked harder, but led to life. So the question isn't, will surrender lead to loss? The question is, what kind of loss are you afraid of? Are you afraid of losing control? Good. You never had it anyway. Control is an illusion. You've been exhausting yourself trying to control things that were never yours to control. Let it go. Are you afraid of losing your plan? Good. Your plan was limited by your vision. Your plan didn't account for things you can't see, people you haven't met, opportunities you don't know exist yet. My plan is infinitely better because I see infinitely more. Are you afraid of losing your timeline? Good. Your timeline doesn't account for all the things that need to happen before you're ready. It doesn't factor in the growth you need, the healing you need, the preparation you need. My timing is perfect because I'm preparing you and what I'm preparing for you. Are you afraid of losing your comfort? Good. Comfort is often the enemy of growth. Comfort keeps you stuck. Comfort makes you complacent. Comfort convinces you that where you are is as good as it gets. I love you too much to leave you comfortable. I'm calling you to something greater, and that requires you to get uncomfortable. What you're calling loss, I'm calling liberation. And once you experience the freedom of not having to control everything, not having to figure everything out, not having to carry the weight of outcomes that were never yours, you're never going to want to go back to the exhausting life you were living before. So here's what I want you to do. Here's how you actually take everything we've talked about and make it real in your daily life. Because theory without application is useless. You can understand everything I've said and still live the exact same way if you don't actually implement it. Let's start with your morning. Before you check your phone, before you scroll social media, before you start planning your day, before you let anxiety flood your mind with everything you have to do, I want you to establish a new pattern. I want you to do this. Speak these words out loud, not just in your head, but out loud. There's power in speaking truth. God, today belongs to you. My plans are on the altar. My agenda is submitted. Show me where to step, and I will follow. Close the doors that aren't yours, and give me peace to accept it. I trust you with what I can't see, and I commit to obedience over outcomes. Amen. That's it. 30 seconds. But those 30 seconds reframe your entire day. Instead of waking up in control mode, trying to figure out how you're going to make everything happen, you wake up in surrender mode. You declare from the very beginning that today is not about your agenda. It's about mine. And everything shifts from there. Your anxiety level changes because you're not carrying the day alone. Your stress decreases because you're not trying to control outcomes. Your peace increases because you've already decided that whatever happens today, I'm in charge, not you. And that one decision, made first thing in the morning, colors everything that follows. Then open my word, not to check a box, not to fulfill a religious obligation, not to find a quick inspirational quote for the day. Open my word for direction. Ask me, God, what do you want me to hear today? What do you want me to focus on? What truth do you want to plant in my heart? And then actually pay attention. Don't just randomly flip to a page. Don't just read whatever your Bible reading plan says without engaging. Ask me to speak, and then expectantly look for what I'm saying. The verse that stands out to you, the passage that you can't stop thinking about, the chapter that draws you in, that's not random. That's not coincidence. That's me speaking. Write it down. Don't just read it and move on. Write it in a journal. Put it on a sticky note. Set it as your phone background. Memorize it. Let that truth sink deep into your spirit. Meditate on it throughout the day. Let it guide your decisions for the next 24 hours. When you're about to make a choice, when you're about to respond to someone, when you're about to spend money, or send a text, or say yes, or say no, ask yourself, does this align with what God showed me this morning? Does this line up with the truth He's planting in me? That's how you let my word lead you instead of just reading it. Let me give you a specific example. Let's say this morning you read the verse about being slow to speak and quick to listen. That's your word for the day. So later, when your coworker says something that irritates you, instead of immediately firing back with a sarcastic response, you remember, slow to speak, quick to listen. You pause. You actually listen to what they're really saying beneath the irritation. You respond with grace instead of react with anger. That's letting my word lead you. Or maybe you read about trusting me with all your heart and not leaning on your own understanding. That's your word. So later, when you're stressed about a decision and you're about to spiral into anxiety, trying to figure it all out, you remember, trust with all your heart. Don't lean on your understanding. You stop trying to control it. You pray. You surrender the outcome to me. See how this works? It's not complicated. It's taking what I say in the morning and actually applying it to your life as you move through the day. And when you do that consistently, day after day, my word starts to transform how you think, how you respond, how you live. Next, and this is huge, every time a door closes, every time a plan falls apart, every time you don't get what you wanted, I want you to practice immediate surrender. Don't let yourself spiral. Don't let yourself sit in disappointment for days. In the moment, pause and say this out loud. God, I trust that you just protected me from something I couldn't see. Thank you for loving me enough to say no. I trust your plan more than my preferences. Help me see this as your mercy, not my loss. This practice will change your brain. Seriously, neuroscience backs this up. When you intentionally reframe disappointment as protection, when you choose gratitude over grief, you're actually rewiring neural pathways. You're training your brain to default to trust instead of panic, to see God's hand instead of random chaos, to interpret closed doors as divine guidance instead of divine rejection. Because right now, when something doesn't go your way, you spiral. Your brain goes into worst-case scenario mode. You think, why is this happening to me? What did I do wrong? Why doesn't God care about what I want? Is He punishing me? Does He even see me? You make it about you. You make it personal. You turn every closed door into evidence that I'm against you, or that you're failing, or that something is fundamentally wrong with your life. But when you start thanking me for closed doors, when you start trusting that every no is protecting you from something you can't see, you stop spiraling. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You start asking, what is God doing for me? What is He protecting me from? What is He steering me toward? What is He trying to teach me? And over time, as you practice this, you'll start to recognize the pattern. You'll look back 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, and you'll see it so clearly. You'll see that the job you didn't get led to the job that was perfect for you. The relationship that ended made room for the one I designed specifically for you. The delay you resented became the exact timing that saved you from disaster. You'll see that the apartment you desperately wanted but didn't get, the one in the neighborhood you loved, You'll find out later that building had a major foundation issue and everyone had to move out anyway. You'll see that the business partnership that fell through, the one you were so sure was from ME, you'll discover later that person wasn't trustworthy and would have bankrupted you. You'll see that the relationship you thought was the one, the person you were convinced you were supposed to marry, you'll realize later they would have slowly crushed your spirit and disconnected you from me. Closed doors aren't punishments, they're mercy, they're love in action, they're me protecting you from your own limited vision. And when you start seeing them that way, when you start thanking me for them instead of resenting them, you'll stop exhausting yourself trying to force them open. You'll stop beating yourself up for not getting what you wanted. You'll start resting in the knowledge that if I closed it, I did it for a reason. And that reason is always, always love. Next, when you're overwhelmed by decisions, when you're paralyzed by options, when you're stuck in analysis paralysis trying to figure out the perfect next move, use this filter. Ask me, what's the next right step, not the next perfect step. You don't need to see the full staircase. You don't need a 5-year plan. You don't need to know how it's all going to work out. You just need the next step. And that step is almost always simpler than you think. Is it making the apology you've been avoiding? Then do that. Don't worry about whether they'll accept it, or whether it'll fix the relationship, or whether it'll be awkward. Just do the next right thing, which is apologize. That's your step. Take it. Is it sending the email you've been putting off? Then do that. Stop overthinking it. Stop waiting for the perfect words. Just write it honestly, read it through once, and send it. That's your step. Is it having the hard conversation you've been dreading? Then do that. Stop rehearsing it in your head. Stop imagining every possible outcome. Just schedule the conversation and show up in truth and love. That's your step. Is it letting go of control in a specific area? Then do that. Identify the one thing you've been white-knuckling, the thing you're trying to force and manipulate, and release it to me. Physically open your hands as a symbol of letting go. Say out loud, I release this to you, God. That's your step. Is it saying no to an opportunity that looks good but doesn't feel like peace? Then do that. Stop trying to talk yourself into it. Stop letting other people pressure you into it. If there's no peace, there's no yes. Say no with confidence, trusting that I'm closing that door for a reason. That's your step. Do that step. Just that one. Don't worry about step 5 or step 10 or how it's all going to work out. Don't try to see the whole picture. Don't demand to understand the why before you do the what. Just do the next thing I'm asking you to do right now. And I promise you, when you're faithful in the step I give you, I'm faithful to reveal the step that comes next. This is how Abraham walked. He didn't know where he was going, but he knew who he was following. God said go, and he went. Then God said pitch your tent here, and he pitched his tent. Then God said move to this place, and he moved. One step at a time, one instruction at a time, never seeing more than the next move, but always trusting that the one giving the instructions knew the full route. This is how Moses led. Manna every morning, just enough for today. Not a week's supply, not a month's supply, today's supply. And that was intentional on my part. I wanted them to learn daily dependence, daily trust, daily surrender, not figure it all out once and coast on that, but wake up every day and look to me for that day's provision. This is how David fought Goliath. He didn't have a 10-step battle plan. He didn't war game every scenario. He had one stone, one sling, and trust that I would guide it. That was his step. Pick up the stone, put it in the sling, aim, trust, and I did the rest. This is how Paul preached the gospel, one city at a time, one person at a time, following where I sent him, without demanding to see the full itinerary. Sometimes I sent him one direction and then blocked him from going further and redirected him somewhere else. And he didn't argue. He didn't demand to know the full plan. He just followed the next leading, trusted the next step, went where I said go, and stopped where I said stop. You don't need a roadmap for the next 5 years. You need clarity on the next 5 minutes. And I'll give you that. Every single time you ask, every single time you surrender, every single time you stop trying to control the whole route, I'll show you the next right step. You have to move. You can't just know what the step is and then sit there waiting for more information, waiting for guarantees, waiting for absolute certainty. Knowledge without obedience is worthless. Do it, take it, move, and trust me to reveal what comes next when you need it. Finally, and this might be the most important practice of all, I want you to write this down and put it somewhere you'll see it every single day. On your mirror, on your dashboard, on your computer screen, as your phone lock screen, wherever you'll encounter it multiple times a day. Write this: I am not defined by what I achieve. I am defined by whose I am. My worth was settled at the cross. My purpose is to obey, not to perform. I don't have to earn God's guidance because I already have it. I belong to Him. Every time fear whispers you're not doing enough, read that. Every time comparison steals your joy and you start measuring yourself against someone else's highlight reel, read that. Every time you feel behind or inadequate or like you're failing at life, read that. Every time control creeps in and you start trying to manipulate outcomes or force doors or orchestrate your own rescue, read that. Every time you're tempted to strive for approval, hustle for significance, perform for love, read that. Because surrender starts with knowing who you are in me. When your identity is secure, your steps become lighter. When you know you're loved before you produce, you stop striving and start following. When you understand that your worth isn't tied to your performance, you can obey without anxiety. When you're confident that you already belong to me, you can rest in my guidance instead of constantly questioning it. Let me expand on this because it's absolutely critical. Most of your anxiety, your striving, your exhaustion, it all comes from an identity crisis. You don't know who you are. You've based your identity on what you do, what you achieve, what other people think of you, whether you're succeeding or failing by the world's standards. And that's a terrible foundation because it's constantly shifting. One day you perform well and you feel good about yourself. The next day you mess up and you feel worthless. One day someone compliments you and you feel validated. The next day, someone criticizes you and you feel destroyed. One day circumstances go your way and you feel like God loves you. The next day, circumstances go wrong and you feel abandoned. Your identity is built on sand, and you're exhausted from trying to keep it stable. But here's the truth. Your identity was settled 2,000 years ago on a cross, before you did anything right or wrong, before you succeeded or failed, before you were even born. I looked at you and said you're worth dying for. I looked at you and said, I want you in my family. I looked at you and said, you're mine, and nothing you do can change that. You can't earn my love. You already have it. You can't make me accept you. I already do. You can't prove your worth to me. I already declared it when I gave my life for you. Your identity is hose. You are not what you do. You're a child of God. Period. That's your identity. And it can't be taken away. It can't be lost. It can't be diminished by failure or inflated by success. It just is. And when you really get that, when that truth moves from your head to your heart, everything changes. You stop performing for approval because you already have it. You stop striving for significance because you already matter. You stop trying to prove yourself because the verdict is already in. You're loved, you're chosen, you're mine. And from that place of security, from that foundation of knowing who you are, you can surrender, you can trust, you can obey without needing to see the outcome, because your worth isn't tied to the outcome. You can take risks, because failure doesn't change your identity. You can follow ME into uncertainty, because your security isn't in circumstances, it's in ME. So let me bring this full circle. You came into this message exhausted. You're tired of trying to control your life, tired of forcing doors, tired of anxiety waking you up at night, tired of feeling like no matter how hard you try, you just can't seem to get it right. You're stuck between wanting to trust me and feeling terrified of what happens if you actually let go. But now you know the truth. Surrender isn't weakness. It's the most powerful posture you can take. Because when you let me guide your steps, you're no longer carrying burdens that were never yours to carry. You're no longer forcing doors I've already closed for your protection. You're no longer white-knuckling plans I never blessed in the first place. You're free. Free to obey. Free to trust. Free to rest in the knowledge that I've already gone before you, that I'm with you right now, and that I'm working all things, even the confusing things, even the painful things, even the closed-door things, together for your good. This isn't about becoming a better version of yourself through sheer effort. This isn't about trying harder, praying louder, performing better. This is about becoming who you already are in Christ by finally stepping into the flow of my will instead of fighting against it. 1 year from today, you're going to look back at this moment and realize it was the turning point. Not because your circumstances magically changed, but because you changed how you walked through them. You stopped trying to be God and let me be God. You stopped demanding proof before trust and started trusting despite the unknown. You stopped exhausting yourself trying to control outcomes and started resting in obedience. And here's what happened. The anxiety that used to strangle you, gone, because you're not carrying what was never yours to carry. The doors that stayed closed, no matter how hard you pushed, you finally made peace with them because you trust that my no is always protecting you from something. The life you thought you had to force, it unfolded naturally, beautifully, perfectly, the moment you let me lead. That future is available right now. Not someday. Not when you get your act together. Not when you finally figure it all out. Right now. Today. This moment. The only question is, are you ready to let go? Here's your mantra. This is straight from my word, and I want you to say it every time doubt creeps in, every time fear screams, every time control tempts you. Say this: I am not lost. I'm being led. I am not behind. I'm right on time. I am not forgotten. I'm fully seen. And the one who guides my steps has never failed, will never fail, and is incapable of leading me wrong. Say that when your mind is racing at 3 a.m. and anxiety is trying to convince you that you're off track. Say that when a door closes and disappointment is trying to convince you that God doesn't care. Say that when you don't understand what I'm doing and confusion is trying to convince you to take control back. Say that when everyone around you thinks you're crazy for trusting ME and their opinions are trying to convince you to compromise. And watch what happens when you actually believe it. Because the truth is, you're not here by accident. This message found you at this exact moment because I knew you needed it. I knew you were at the end of your rope. I knew you were ready to finally admit that you can't do this on your own. I knew you were desperate enough to try something different. So here's what I want you to do right now. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Not after you think about it. Right now. I want you to identify one area where you've been trying to control the outcome. One area where you've been forcing a door, manipulating circumstances, exhausting yourself trying to make something happen. Just one. What is it? Is it a relationship? Are you trying to force someone to love you, commit to you, change for you? Is it your career? Are you trying to orchestrate the perfect opportunity, manipulate your way into a promotion, force a door that I've been trying to close? Is it your finances? Are you trying to control every dollar, hoard instead of give, operate in fear instead of faith? Is it your timeline? Are you demanding that things happen on your schedule instead of trusting my timing? Is it your reputation? Are you trying to control what people think of you, performing for approval, hiding who you really are? Got it? Whatever it is, I want you to surrender it. Not theoretically, not in some vague spiritual way. Actually, practically, specifically, release it right now. Say it out loud. God, I've been trying to control this. Say what it is. Be specific. I've been trying to control this relationship, this career move, this financial outcome, this timeline, this reputation. I've been holding on to this so tightly because I'm afraid of what happens if I let go. I'm afraid you won't come through. I'm afraid it won't work out. I'm afraid I'll lose something I can't live without. But I'm exhausted, and I don't trust myself anymore. So I'm giving this to you. Right now, in this moment, I'm surrendering the outcome. I'm releasing my timeline. I'm letting go of my plan. And I'm choosing to trust that your plan is better even if I can't see it yet. Even if it doesn't look like what I wanted. Even if it's harder than I hoped. I trust that you see what I can't see. I trust that you know what I don't know. I trust that your no is protecting me and your yes is blessing me. Show me the next step and I'll take it. Close the doors that aren't yours and I'll accept it. Lead me and I'll follow. I'm done trying to be God. I'm ready to let you be God. Say it. Mean it. Don't just mouth the words. Actually release your grip. Actually surrender control. Actually trust me with this. And then watch what I do. Because I've been waiting for you to get to this place. I've been waiting for you to stop running your own show so I can show you what I've been planning all along. I've been waiting for you to release your grip so I can place something better in your hands. You don't need more faith. You don't need to figure it out. You don't need perfect understanding. You just need to take the next step. I'm showing you, and trust me with the rest. That's it. That's the whole assignment. And here's my promise to you. I will never lead you somewhere and then abandon you there. I will never ask you to trust me and then prove unworthy of that trust. I will never close a door without opening a better one. I will never say no to something you want without giving you something you need. Because I love you, not because of what you do, not because you finally got it right, not because you're performing well enough. I love you because you're mine, and nothing, absolutely nothing, can change that. So trust me with your steps. Stop trying to see the whole staircase. Stop demanding to understand everything before you move. Stop exhausting yourself trying to control outcomes that were never yours to control. Just follow. One step at a time, one day at a time, one moment of obedience at a time. I've never lost anyone who followed me. Not once. Not ever. And I'm not about to start with you. Now go. Take that first step. The one you know you need to take. The one you've been avoiding. The one that scares you. Take it in faith. Take it in trust. Take it knowing that I'm already there. I'm already working. I'm already making a way. And watch what happens when you finally stop fighting and start following. And if this message resonated with you, if something shifted while you were listening, if you felt me speaking directly to your situation, don't keep it to yourself. Leave a comment. Tell me where you're surrendering control today, not someday. Today. What's the one area you're releasing right now? Because when you declare it, when you make it real by speaking it out, something powerful happens. It's not just a decision anymore. It's a commitment. And I honor commitment. And if you want more truth like this, more content where the Bible speaks for itself without fluff, without manipulation, without watered-down Christianity, then subscribe. Because this is just the beginning. There's so much more I want to show you. So many more truths I want to reveal. So many more ways I want to set you free. But it all starts with surrender. It all starts with you deciding right now that you're done trying to be God. Done trying to control your life. Done exhausting yourself trying to figure it all out. You're ready to let me lead. You're ready to follow. You're ready to trust that the one who created you, who died for you, who rose for you, who intercedes for you, actually knows what he's doing. So do it. Surrender. Let go. Trust me. And watch your life transform in ways you never imagined possible. I'm not going anywhere. I'm right here. I've always been right here. And I'll be here every step of the way as you learn to walk in the freedom of letting me guide your steps. You've got this, not because you're strong enough, but because I am. And that's all you need. Trust me with your steps. I've never lost anyone who followed, and I'm not about to start with you. Because here's what happens next. Here's what your life looks like when you actually live surrendered. When you wake up every morning and your first thought isn't panic about everything you have to control, but peace, knowing that I'm already handling it. When you face decisions, and instead of spiraling into anxiety, you simply ask me, and then wait for my peace. When doors close and instead of beating yourself up or questioning my love, you thank me for protecting you from something you couldn't see. Your relationships change because you stop trying to control how people respond to you. You stop performing for approval. You stop walking on eggshells trying to keep everyone happy. You love freely, give generously, speak truthfully, and then you release the outcome to me. If they receive it, great. If they don't, that's between them and me. You did your part. You were obedient, and you're free from the exhausting burden of managing everyone's reactions. Your work changes because you stop tying your identity to your productivity. You stop measuring your worth by your output. You show up with excellence, not because you're trying to prove something, but because you're serving me through your work. And when you don't get the promotion, when someone else gets the credit, when your efforts aren't recognized, you're okay. Because your validation doesn't come from a performance review. It comes from knowing you're mine. Your finances change. Because you stop operating from a scarcity mindset. You stop hoarding out of fear. You start giving generously, even when it doesn't make sense on paper, because you trust that I'm your provider, and you watch me open doors you never could have opened yourself. You watch provision show up from sources you never expected. You watch me multiply what you give away and meet needs you haven't even voiced yet. Your peace changes. This is the big one. You actually sleep through the night. The anxiety that used to wake you at 3 a.m., the racing thoughts that used to hijack your mind, the worst-case scenarios that used to play on repeat, they lose their power. Because you've transferred the burden from your shoulders to mine. You've stopped trying to carry tomorrow's problems with today's strength. You've learned to be present, to trust me with the future, to rest in the knowledge that I've got this. And people notice. They notice that you're different. They can't quite put their finger on it, but there's a peace about you that doesn't make sense given your circumstances. There's a confidence that isn't arrogance. There's a joy that isn't dependent on everything going your way. And when they ask you about it, you get to tell them. You get to say, I stopped trying to control everything and started trusting God with everything, and it changed my life. Let me tell you what this looks like in the moments that matter. You're in a conversation that's getting heated. The old you would have immediately gone into defense mode, trying to control the narrative, manipulating the situation to make yourself look good. But the surrendered you pauses. You breathe. You ask me, how do you want me to respond right now? And I give you grace. I give you words, seasoned with salt. I give you the ability to speak truth, in love, without needing to win the argument. And the conversation that could have destroyed a relationship becomes an opportunity for deeper connection. You're facing a financial decision. The old you would have made a pros and cons list, calculated every possible outcome, tried to guarantee success before moving. But the surrendered you asks me for wisdom. You seek my direction through prayer, through scripture, through godly counsel. And when you have peace about a direction, you move with confidence, even if it doesn't make perfect sense financially. Because you're trusting that I see what you can't see. And I do. And 6 months later, you look back and see how that decision positioned you for a blessing you never could have orchestrated. You're waiting for something you've prayed about for years. The old you would have been bitter by now, questioning whether I even hear you, wondering if you did something wrong to deserve the wait. But the surrendered you has learned to trust my timing. You've learned that delays aren't denials. You've learned that I'm not withholding from you. I'm preparing you. And instead of spending your waiting season in misery, you spend it becoming more patient, more trusting, more dependent on me, more like Christ. And when the promise finally comes, you're ready for it in a way you never would have been if I had given it to you earlier. You're going through a season of loss. A relationship ended, a dream died, a door slammed shut. The old you would have crumbled, would have seen it as evidence that life is against you, that God doesn't care, that nothing good ever happens for you. But the surrendered you grieves honestly, feels the pain fully, but doesn't let the loss define you. You trust that I'm doing something you can't see yet. You believe that what I'm removing is making room for what I'm bringing. You hold on to my promises even when circumstances seem to contradict them. And you come through the loss stronger, not bitter, deeper, not harder, more compassionate, not more cynical. This is what life looks like when you actually let me guide your steps. It's not that everything becomes easy. It's that everything becomes purposeful. The hard things still happen, but they're not random. The losses still hurt, but they're not meaningless. The waiting still tests you, but it's not wasted. Because you know that I'm in control, that I'm working everything together for your good, that nothing is touching your life that hasn't first passed through my hands. And here's what I need you to understand as we close this moment together. This isn't a one-time decision. Surrender isn't something you do once, and then you're good for life. It's a daily choice. Sometimes it's a moment-by-moment choice. Every day, you're going to wake up and your flesh is going to want to take control back. Your fear is going to whisper that you can't trust me with this. Your pride is going to suggest that you know better. And every day, you're going to have to choose surrender again. Some days it'll be easy. You'll wake up with peace. You'll feel my presence. You'll move through your day in the flow of my will. Other days, it'll be a fight. You'll wrestle with doubt. You'll be tempted to force doors. You'll want to grab the steering wheel back. And that's okay. That's normal. That's part of the process. The key is that you keep choosing, keep surrendering, keep releasing, keep trusting. And over time, it gets easier. Not because circumstances get easier, but because your trust muscles get stronger. The more you see me come through, the easier it becomes to trust me the next time. The more you watch me turn closed doors into divine protection, the quicker you release future doors. The more you experience my faithfulness, the deeper your faith becomes. So I'm inviting you into this journey, this lifelong journey of learning to let me lead, learning to recognize my voice, learning to move in obedience before understanding, learning to trust my heart when you can't see my hand. It's the most challenging journey you'll ever take, and it's the most rewarding, because on the other side of surrender is freedom, real freedom, not the counterfeit freedom the world sells where you're enslaved to your own desires and drowning in the consequences, but true freedom, freedom from anxiety, freedom from the crushing weight of control, freedom from the performance treadmill, freedom from the need to have it all figured out, freedom to be who I created you to be, freedom to walk in your purpose without striving, freedom to love without fear, freedom to rest in my goodness. And that freedom, that peace, that life, it's yours. It's already been purchased. It's already been paid for. The price was my son. The proof is the empty tomb. The promise is that I will never leave you or forsake you. So take my hand. Stop white-knuckling your life. Open your fist. Release your grip. And let me lead you into the abundant life I've been trying to give you all along. The journey starts now. The transformation begins today. And I promise you, 1 year from now, you won't even recognize the person you used to be. The anxious, controlling, exhausted version of you will be a distant memory. And in its place will be someone who walks in confidence, rests in peace, and lives in the freedom of complete surrender. So, let's go. Let's walk this journey together. My hand is already extended. All you have to do is take it. Trust me with your steps. I've never failed. I never will. And you, my beloved, are going to discover what it means to truly live, not just survive, not just get by, but thrive in the abundant life I designed for you from the beginning. Welcome to surrender. Welcome to freedom. Welcome home.